I might be calling you on
oligopoly, some economic little.
5:30, so we will call Community Development and Zoning to order, and the first item on our agenda is a presentation by Jan Wilkins, so we'll turn it over to Jan.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to also turn it over to April Foster and Bill Howe. They are with the VSO Veterans. I've learned a lot about the service. That's the Veterans Service Organization or Office.
Yes, it is.
That's my full knowledge right there.
Thank you. We're actually with the Licking County Veterans Service Commission, and we have the Licking County Veterans Service Office. It's over on Buckeye Avenue in Newark. I think you guys pretty much see us a lot, and I think most of you know what we do. But we are here because we would like to give a special thank you to the mayor for all of his hard work in the Armed Forces Day Parade, and just for recognizing our veterans, our current military members, and our veterans.
Thank you.
So this is for you from our office, just to say thank you.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that very much. Oh, that's wonderful.
I want to say one thing before we go on. I came out with April because they came to me and they said, "You're the president of the commission, you should go out and make a presentation." And when we met out in the parking lot, I said to April, "You make the presentation, you're the one that did all the work. Just because I'm the president, I will support you, you take care of it."
That's called delegation.
Yes,
There you go.
Very good.
I catch a lot of that.
I'm afraid to talk.
I have pretty broad shoulders. They like to kind of put that down on me. So I think it's just because I'm the youngest in the office. They're like, oh, she can handle it.
There you go.
We also have another one that we'd like to give Mr. John Groff for all of his hard work and everything that he did in helping to organize for the parade. Mr. Groff, this is for you. You're very welcome. We appreciate everything that you did.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
This is what we're here for.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, did you guys have any questions for me or anything else that you needed?
I guess I would just ask for your feedback and opinion and your impressions of the day in general.
Oh, I was highly impressed. You know, we do the Memorial Day Parade and the Veterans Day Parade every year, and of course they're not anything like this. We've never had anything so big, and there were so many people that showed up and that were honored. And it didn't, I know we had a little hiccup with a political person, but 99% of it turned out really great, and there wasn't a bunch of political stuff going on, and it really was focused at our military members, and that's really nice.
Good.
It is. It was really nice. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback. Everybody was happy with it, and I know the weather kind of crumbed out on us for a minute, but it turned out okay.
Well, I know you're having gotten a better understanding of the services that your organization provides for
Lots
the
of them.
veterans. It was really nice to have you be a part of that. I think everybody appreciated the efforts that you put into it prior to and during the event itself.
It was very well done. I was just absolutely amazed, Jan, and you people, what you did, and I got to drive right behind the tank.
But you didn't get to fire it.
Well, thank you very much for this. I'm not sure that you know I'm necessarily as worthy of this as others, but to the extent that I was able to help, I was very pleased to be able to do so.
Okay.
We're very glad. And if there's anything else that you guys ever need or anything, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here, and we're definitely here to support the community too.
Good.
So
Excellent.
if you need anything else, even if it's just participating in more parades or anything else that you do. Yeah, we'll be more than happy. That's what, like I said, I have broad shoulders, and they usually down the line to me. So
April's new in her position. Wait, give her about 5 years.
Well, and I think it's important that you understand that the reverse is also true. If there's anything that you think that the city can do to help further the cause of your organization and the work that you try to do for veterans, it's really great stuff and important stuff. And so if you think that there's a way that we might be able to better help your services and deliver, you know, what you do, please.
we will
Don't
definitely
hesitate
remember
to
that.
Good, excellent.
Definitely.
Mayor, if I could just say that I hope that this really wasn't a one-time thing. I hope that we maybe can look at it to where, hey, I know Jan, John, and we've put in so much work, but it's something that I think that we've directed our attention as a city towards our veterans. And I think we need to really look into maybe seeing if we can't make this thing go on again, so.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Keep me posted, okay?
I will do,
And I will
honey.
get it out there.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll go ahead and give my presentation now. I know we could have ignored this, but I thought it was important for you guys to get a feel of what it was like as far as this parade is concerned. If I can get a hold of these. I'll put 3 of them over there.
See ya.
And, yeah, I'll give you, what do you need?
Down here.
Well, let me give a couple up here. Go ahead and take them, that's fine.
You want me to give this to Ronnie?
Except, my final notes, pardon me?
You want me to give this to
That's fine, I don't care. Has everybody got one now?
Coming. I got it.
Can you get one?
You need a couple more? I don't know what you did with the other. What did you do with the ones that are just the blank ones? You think they're the one in here?
Yeah, I got two. I mean, they ripped off the
One for
signs.
Brian and one for Peterson.
That's what's in Brian and Peter's.
But I should put this separate. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. Everybody get one now or not? Everybody okay?
I think so.
Okay, let me just go over this. I tried to fix this so that I wouldn't take up all evening, and John, I don't know your agenda, so stop me whenever
I
you need
got
to.
one earlier.
Yeah, we're good.
First of all,
I think John's prepared for you to give a thorough.
all right, Johannes.
5 minutes.
And you know what, before I forget it, I did talk with April in regards to who was, these plaques, or this recognition actually came from Jack Bickley, and requested that the VSO do something to thank people for, I mean, it meant so much to them. The Friendship Club will be getting one. I have to host a dinner because of it. But you know what, there's always an excuse. But I agreed to do that, but they wanted to do their presentation in front of the Friendship Club, so don't feel that anybody's been left out, all right? But I do appreciate, I do want to say in regards to the mayor, that I appreciate the fact that he had an open ear. Jack Bickley came in and get me straight on this, if I'm wrong, and asked about having the parade, and I think that was based on Halloween, when we had the spectacular part of the Halloween, and they had such a great time out here.
Jack
meeting-
Beckley's with the Vietnam Veterans Group,
Yes.
and they have the
helicopter.
Huey. Yeah, the helicopter.
Yeah.
So,
Right. And he just had such a great time. So he approached, I don't know who he approached, either John or the mayor, but he approached the mayor at one point and asked if it was possible. They went to John, and John said, well, call Jan. So I thought, well, and I had to think about it, and I thought, well, you know what, it is for veterans, and my group I know is going to kill me, but I decided to do it. And so then I called John, and I said, well, you can help me now. So that's what it came back to bite him. You know how it goes. But the thing that I appreciated about this is that the mayor did listen and thought about it. It did take much time to think about it, but you know, he knew that it was a good cause, and really the parade ended up being a good cause. It's a good community event, probably one of the best things that I think that we have done in Heath, actually in any of it, and because it was who it was for, and particularly in today's world where the veterans are being kicked around or whatever, as we find out. But anyway, we collected. The issue was, first of all, I talked with Heath and Becky, and we tried to work out what's the best way to handle the finances, because the Friendship Club is not a 501c3, so I know that some companies have to have that. Heath was gracious enough, and Becky was gracious enough that we worked it out to where we would allow the groups to give money to either organization. So that's why you find two different ones here. It's handled much like the July the 2nd event. In fact, we have the money tracked through the same, am I right on this, Keith, the same account. as the July the 2nd. That's what I understood.
Yep.
And we're handling it pretty much in the same way. So at that particular point then, we collected, as you see here, you collected $4,335.09 through the city. And what we did then was use that money to pay off things that would require sales tax. And that way we would be able to work within the confines of our budget. The money that I used, or that the Friendship Club used out of their account, of course, as not being a 501c3, we have to pay tax on everything. So we kind of had to work through this whole process, but it has been very smooth. The Friendship Club collected $971. And then there was a grant. Actually, the club tried to come up with money on their own for to do a float. And of course I said, where are you going to get the money from? You don't have any money, guys, because they don't have money in their account. So they start collecting money amongst themselves. But in the meantime, the Veteran Service Organization, April said, Jan, she says, I will give you a grant for your supplies for the float if you will participate in the Memorial Day parade. So the group accepted that challenge, and they not only did their parade, but they went over on the day of the Memorial Day parade and participated in the one that was being held over there, which I thought was a nice kind of gesture of going back and forth and helping each other.
To give you guys a kind of a sense of how this worked, we structured this very, very much the same that we do the Star Spangled Celebration, you know, where we receive donations from individuals and groups for the event, the fireworks and things like that, and then invoices are made to the city, and then money is paid out that way. So it was structured in the same way that we do Star Spangled Celebration, because it was a process that we're familiar with from all of those years.
Okay, and so you'll see the things that are paid out of the city. We did use some of the city's postage, and Heath, that one form that I gave you, I added in, this one's a little bit different amount, it's $9.60 more that I added in there that belongs to the city. But you know, in the long run, it works out. Instead of giving us $80-some left over, it's $76.56.
That's the invoice you gave Becky.
I haven't really given her an invoice yet, and the reason I haven't, I want to make sure that all bills are paid.
She's already working off of something that looks like this.
Right.
That is.
The only thing that's not, she does not have the invoice for is the final amount left over, which was $87. I'll just reduce it, and I'll go over that with her.
I guess I'd encourage you to have communication with her.
I will.
So,
I definitely will. I just didn't have time to get that ready for tonight. But because we did the thank you letters, and I'd already put an invoice number in there for postage, I wanted to show that we actually use some of the city's postage for the thank you letters as well. Okay. Anyway, if you look at the grand total of things, you will see that we actually received in dollar amounts, and I'm using the term dollars because there are some things that are in kind. So I want to take the dollar figures first. We had $5,792.92, and we spent $5,760.12. That's with all the money, whether it's the city or whether it's the Friendship Club, leaving us a total of $32.80, which is pretty close, guys. That's about as close as you can possibly get it. And actually, probably if everything were billed to it, you know, the gasoline and everything else, people were going to Cambridge and everywhere else to try to get supplies and things like that, we would have gone over, but everybody worked together and just donated towards that, particularly for those kind of things. Okay, so our surplus, as I said, is $32.80 after all bills are paid. Okay, the sponsors, we had 44 sponsors, as I've got on here. 27 provided financial sponsorship. 8 of those were companies or businesses. I separated that out from the car agencies because actually the car agencies is what I started with. When I agreed to do this parade, I never even thought about it costing anything. You know, you think everything's free in this world, but it really wasn't. And all it was, it dawned on me, it's not free. You better get with it. So I wanted to bring the tank here, and I got a hold of Pat Thompson with the Firelands Military Group, who actually is up in that same area, and they have a big group that they support one another. And when I found out the cost of the tank, I said, I will get that tank. I want that tank. I'd already told Ron. I said, what, is it free? And he said, yes. And he started looking at his personal calendar. I said, Ron, you can sleep in the doghouse for one night. I want that tank. And so, you know, we worked it out, and then he told me that it was going to cost me $1,800. But I just thought, you know, it's a vehicle. Well, some kind of a vehicle. You know, it's close enough. Get the car agencies to help me out with that, and they were so gracious. John Hinder was the first one that worked with me, and then, you know, they would just say, well, if so-and-so will do it, I will do it. So, of course, I just used that a little bit, massaged that thought, and I talked with each other. And then 4 of the group, 4 of the agencies were in the parade. The only one that was not was RCD Sales, and they said they just didn't have any kind of vehicle that would be appropriate for it, which, you know, I gave them the option, and that was their decision, and that was okay. But I wanted to give the other ones an opportunity to participate. We had 3 service groups, and Tim, we appreciate Sertoma helping us out, and I think you're president, aren't you?
No.
No. What are you then? Are you with Sertoma?
I'm a has-been.
You're a has-been. Well, I sent the letter to you, I think.
I got it. I'll pass it along.
Well, the has-been means that he was president for a day. But anyway, and then we had 5 veterans groups that actually participated financially. And I'll tell you, of all of them, the one that really got me, because I really struggled with this part. When I sent that letter out, I had to think hard about sending out a letter to the veterans group because I felt we should be doing it for them. But then up in Lima, Ohio, Pat gave me a lecture and he said, do it. And I said, well, I need it, so I'm going to do it. But when I got the money, the $100 from the Disabled American Veterans, that really cut me. That cut me deep. I really, and I still struggle with that. I really do. But they did it, and you know, what else can I do? And then we had 6 individuals who also donated, and I appreciate that. Then we had 17 companies or groups that provided in-kind service, and things like Coca-Cola that provided 480 cans of Coke. You know, we had Lowe's that gave us a whole skid of water. We can take care of water because it was cold. Nobody wanted water. We had enough water to take care of all the Heath. So what we did was gave it to the Star Spangled Celebration. You know, for them to be able to use, because we didn't want to just leave it, things go, but it's worked out well. On the second page, we determined our theme to be a salute to the armed forces, which we stayed with. And when April said that we didn't want politics involved, we didn't. That was the one thing that 2 things that I hit off the bat. Number 1, I want no political activity, because this is for the armed services. We only had 1 violation out of 500, and how many did we say? 586 people. We only had 1 violation, and I think we're still trying to figure out, he snuck in there, but I think after I got done verbal, when I write my letter, he'll probably never ever do that again. I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
Get your ruler out after him.
I didn't have to, all I had to have was my pencil. Well, actually, my typewriter, my computer. But anyway, it was a good cooperative spirit right from the get-go. John was an invaluable source. I can't tell you how much I relied on John, honestly. I mean, he's a great guy to work with, and he can make something out of nothing. And you know, when I gave him, when we kept fussing back and forth trying to figure out, now we're about ready for the staging numbers and putting them in line. And finally, when I got them all in line, I sent it to John. And honestly, he ought to go into art. He made a nice organized event out of something that, when I gave it to him, could have been very chaotic, because you had bands. You had bands from anywhere from 30 to 90, and you had different size vehicles and a tank and a helicopter and animals coming and all kinds of things that was happening, and I appreciate that. Not only did he do that, but he also did the layout for the park, and we absolutely, if there was any part where we had no control, it was a park, and Jeff knows that, because he called me in the middle of the stage and says, what am I going to do with this guy? I said, I don't know, just think about it, figure a spot before I do. And of course, John then met with both Doug and and Jeff, and they did, it was it was great the way it went off. And when you got into the park, of course, I was toward the end of it. When I finally got into the park, I thought, wow, this really looks organized. And that was probably really the most difficult, in my opinion, John. I don't know, you want to pipe up on that?
No, you're saying it all, Jim.
That was the most difficult, was the park. You know, and then we were also working with the issue that it had been raining, and we didn't want to tear up the park, but we were caught. You know, what do you do in a situation like that? So
Let me just
yeah.
interrupt you, Ann, for a second. The one person she's left out, the two people, are herself and Dan. I mean, the parade would not have been without these two people. And it's nice of you to laud everyone else, but you need to put yourself at the top.
I just put it together. It's fine. Okay, so the assistants, first of all, as I said, the mayor, I appreciate the fact that whenever I ran into something, you know, if I was looking for a particular thing, he even made some personal phone calls to some political people, and was that in Columbus?
Yes.
Whatever it was, and tried to get some more involvement, but then the involvement started coming, and we just worked, I think everybody worked as a team on this, and that's what makes it a good parade, is because we got so much great help. And then, of course, Eddie helped us, and whenever John would have, poor Eddie he'd have to hunt something out or run something off and try to work with us in that way. And I'll tell you, your new chief did an absolutely wonderful job. I mean, you got to think about the fact that he had just been named chief, and this thing was thrown at him immediately. And to be able to pull all this off. Now, you know, when I met with him, we had a couple of meetings with him and Chief Huggins, and tried to figure out all these different details. But when I met with him, and this was before he was actually taking over the position, I was trying to bring out the idea that I had the tank, and Ron said that I had to have a policeman fire the thing. And I was going to use it as kind of an incentive, and he cut me off. He said, nobody's firing that thing but me. And I told him, I said, then I get a get out of jail free card since you get to do that. So you guys all remember, that was my agreement with him. If I get picked up, then I'm going to pull, he hasn't given it to me yet, but I'm putting it on tape. I doubt that he will. But anyway, the parks look great. I know that we still had issues as far as all the rain and everything, but they worked hard on it over there, and I appreciated that. And of course, Bob has been very cooperative on the financial part of letting us run this through his budget, with us replacing the funds, obviously. Street department, I'm telling you, they did they did a wonderful job. You met with Dave, right, and beforehand, and we gathered up all these things that were needed. And if you watch the video of this, they are literally right behind the fire department, picking up all the things so that 30th Street could be opened up immediately. I was amazed at the organization, and they're to be commended on that. I mean, they really, really are. And of course, I told you that Heath and I have really worked very good on this together, very cooperative. In the front office, the girls would take care of making phone calls to me if there was an issue. Jeff and Doug, you were out the day before and the day of, and Jeff was coming to meetings and trying to figure out all the layout and work with everybody, and I appreciate that. And then we got some outside assistance, as it tells you here. The community, I learned it's CERT, the CERT team.
CERT, yep.
Yeah, I was spelling it with
What's
an
it?
S.
Community Emergency Response
Right.
Team, I think is what that stands
Yeah.
for.
The Chief Mason had to straighten me out on that one. But anyway, he said they did a fabulous job. I didn't know them, but that's okay. I mean,
Chief Mason said that we did not require any overtime services from our police department personnel because of the volunteers from the CERT team and others, being able to handle the traffic control and such. So that was a big help.
That's amazing. That one's one I didn't realize either. I know that Jeff, I think you and your wife were both out putting up flags the day before, and
That was it.
I got it in there.
That side of the street, I got this side. You back in the car. Go this way, I'll go that way.
There you go. And I really also have to commend the good ones. Honest, Pete, they gave so much. You have no idea. The little stickers that I put on your things, that was all donated. And we were really going to use that. We couldn't figure out how we were going to identify for the military to just be fed in the volunteer area, but we didn't have enough money to feed the whole community, and they were going to use that, and I looked at that and I said, there's no way we're going to use that. I said, that's a souvenir. You can't use that. I can't stand up there and pull that off of somebody, particularly one of the military guys. So we gave them out as souvenirs, and I did those little ticket type things, but they did the Grand Marshal sign. They helped us with the floats. I mean, they were just an unbelievable group. They did a wonderful job. So I appreciate what they have done. Participants and I was gone Wednesday. Well, I finished up thank you letters on Wednesday, 120 some of them, and then I was gone until yesterday. So I've put this together quickly, and hopefully I haven't missed anybody. But we had Licking, Perry, Muskingum counties, Columbus, and Lima. We did have 55 groups. We actually had 2 that I knew at the end that may not participate, but then we had one that came in, and then we had another one from Columbus that came in, and
Well,
we
that
were
politician
able to.
actually.
And the politician, well, that makes him 56. That's right. 586 people, 242 that marched, 64, and this was what I was really wanting, was the active military, because Mark kept saying, or I should say the mayor kept saying, that's what Armed Forces Day is, because they have the Veterans Day, so we really wanted this. And I was kind of disgruntled about a week, maybe a couple weeks before, because I didn't have as many as I wanted, and let's see, what's his name? Captain Hudo, he's on the right-hand side as well, from Blacklick called me, and he said, Jen, I know that we are past the deadline, but I saw the parade information, and I wanted to know, is there any way I could get my group in there? And I thought, is there any way? Yeah. Because they were the active. They actually have 120 of their guys are in Afghanistan and might be coming home. I don't know whether it's this week. I knew that they were going to be home within a couple of weeks. And so this was a group that was left behind, and he wanted them to participate on their behalf. And I thought, what a great thing. And he was the one that also brought the 2-star general with him. And he is so excited about that he wants, he and I have been communicating a lot. Actually, the 2 groups that participated said, if you have it next year, we'll have more involved in that, so more of the military. So that made me feel good.
I mean, more reservists or
Right,
National Guard?
National Guard. National Guard definitely said that, and the sergeant said the same thing. So, the captain said the same thing. I got to get my ranks right. Like I told you, the highest ranking was this 2-star general. We had participation. Actually, Jim Watercutter gave me a list of the veterans organizations, and I used that as my base to work with. Now, you look at the fact that all except 4 veterans groups participated, but you got to remember that doesn't necessarily mean that people didn't participate, because they're involved in multiple, I learned that, multiple veterans groups. So, they can't march in everything, can't be part of everything. The one area that I had the biggest struggle with was the ladies' organization. And I guess, it was the Blue Star Mothers, and I've learned what the Blue Star Mothers are trying to, and the Gold Star Mothers. I did contact them, but I couldn't get a response. So that, I think, is an area that we could try to work on a little ahead of time, but time was, there are thousands of hours, guys, in this parade, I can assure you of that. Particularly, I have never done a parade. I've done lots of things, but I haven't done a parade. Now, I can say that anymore. And John hasn't done a parade. So we had, everything that we were doing had to be learned. And what I basically did was went out on the internet, and I thought, heavens, if I'm going to take on this parade, and I did have a nightmare about that when I stood up, and I thought, are you crazy? I said, yes, you are, and I went back to sleep. But anyway, then I got on the internet. I thought I better figure this out, because there'll be weaknesses. So I did. I studied the parades in various places, and it was based on what I learned from them that I came up with the registration information. The weak part on the registration information, John, was Geller Park. Never even thought about it. Of course, originally, we weren't going to do anything at Geller Park, but it snowballed. And I think Doug Chrysler was responsible for that, because he wanted us to do something for the military and let him grill the hot dogs. And that's what we ended up doing. So from that point forward, then there were other things that ended up happening. 124 vehicles, 12 of them were military. You know, guys, these are random. I did the best that I could to kind of give you an idea. There could have been more military vehicles. The breakdown, I know there were 124 vehicles, but as far as the breakdown in there, I did the best that I could to give it to you. I know I had only one Sherman tank, and I know I had only one helicopter, and I knew we had only 2 floats. And next year, you know, the VSO is willing to work with us to give us another grant to develop another float, which I thought was nice. I thought the emergency responders were wonderful. You know, there's no parade unless you have bands, unless you have the emergency response, unless you have fire engines and everybody going wild, you know, as far as their sirens are concerned. You will notice that the Heath Police was not in this, but they were working, so they couldn't be. They were in it, but in a different capacity. The only one that was in it at the end was the chief, and he fired the tank.
And remember, Officer MD with our canine.
And the canine, yes, and the canine. And you know, that was an amazing thing too, because we originally had the military working dogs coming, and then I got the email that said, Jen, I'm sorry, but they've taken all of our dogs. I don't know what was going on in the world, but somebody took all the dogs anyway. And of course they're active, so they have to go from there. So I talked to Bob Wainford and I said, Bob, I really wanted those crazy dogs. I said, everybody likes to watch dogs. And so he really worked at that and ended up getting, and along with, I think it was Chief Mason, they worked together to try to get the canine unit. And it really was beautifully done. I mean, all 4 of those vehicles, and watching on video him about losing an arm was fun.
That guy told me when Havoc clamped on to, kind of wrestle him around and shake him around a little bit, he was shaking me around. I wasn't shaking him.
He really was. You noticed that. Yeah. You noticed they were holding him back as far as they possibly could, too. So that was a fun thing. And then I actually had the Blackhawks coming. Because they of course they fly out of the airport, and then just the week before I get the email from him and said, don't you know, he says, they're scheduled to fly at night training rather than day. I said, oh, for crying out loud, tell them that they just got all fouled up. So we got a hold of the airport. Jack Bickley had already talked with him, and then I called him, and he got 2 of the guys to fly the Venti. What planes were they? The biplanes. Yeah. So that's the way we started the parade, and I was okay with that. And then we got the 2 horses too, because the sheriff's department brought that, and I really wanted the horses. But we saved you from not having to clean that up.
Yeah.
Now Mark was in the parade, and I know he fought me on that for a while because we said no politicians, but he was not there in that respect. We put him with the thank you right before the thank you float, and the city needed a presence of saying thank you. He is the one who got the parade going. He is representing the city. He was not representing some political activity that was going on like the one gentleman. And the thing that frustrated me even with that gentleman is that I had promised that there would be no throwing of anything. Now you think, well, parades are for kids go out and gather candy, and I know that there were kids with sacks along there. But think about that. You have vehicles, military vehicles that you cannot see out of or above, and so when I talked with Ron even 2 days before, well, actually a week before, he said, Jan, let's talk about throwing candy. And I says, is there going to be any throwing candy? And I thought, if all people asked me that, I was about ready to kill him. I said, absolutely not. He said, well, that's good. He said, because I don't want any throwing of candy. He said, I don't care how far back the tank is. He said that he was one parade just recently that he was in. They assured him that there was plenty of distance between anybody that was throwing candy and that tank. And he said, don't you know, one kid sold out one piece of candy and ran out right in front of that tank. They got it stopped in time, but he said that's the danger that's involved. And I had already said no, and I had said that to all groups. I said, you can walk along the side and hand out flags, or like the beads or the necklace, no candy. I don't want any candy, because once you get candy, the kids will just start throwing it around, and then you got the same issue. And of course, this gentleman not only violated the no political activity, but he also violated that after he'd been told along the parade route there's not supposed to be any candy being thrown. You know, if I had seen him, I would have truly removed him, but I didn't. That's okay. All right, Geller Park activities. When we got down into the park, personally, I thought it was very impressive. We had the big ladder truck with the American flag hanging down.
That looks pretty cool.
That was
when you
cool.
do that little jog there on Cynthia and
you see that.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and people remarked about that. So once they went under that, that meant that the parade ended and the Geller Park activities then began. We held up the ceremony for 1/2 hour until the last participant was underneath that flag to give people on 30th Street an opportunity, the public, to get in there to watch it. I thought the ceremony, it was like clockwork, it was quick. I mean, we had the posting of the colors. Help me, John. We had you weren't there.
Yeah, there were
posting of the colors,
the 3 songs.
and then we had the salute. I had forgotten about Pledge Allegiance. Isn't that great? And then we sang. We had a soloist that sang the Star Spangled Banner. Then we had the firing of the guns, or vice versa, I think. And then we had the God Bless the USA. And then we had the firing of the tank. And then we had one more song that everybody, American song that everybody was able to sing. Then we asked the colonel at the Air Force Base to make a few final comments about look around and thank you for coming and for supporting us. And that was really it. So it went fast. I had my husband down at the other end by the tank. I said, so help me, don't you mess this one up. You're going to be in real bad trouble. I had him on the cell phone. I said, when I say fire, you make sure that you tell them to fire. I said, don't say any other words, fire. And he did a great job. I'll try that again.
Good.
He better have. So anyway, it was a great day. Of course, the K-9, as I told you, did a wonderful job. The VSO just asked me if they could have a stand down for the homeless vets, and that was one thing that did break my heart too. We had one that came at the beginning of the staging area, and he said, I'm a veteran. Can I march in the parade? And I said, sir, we're really not taking any walk-ins. He said, well, I have my card, and he pulls it out. Well, his pants are torn. I mean, you could tell that he was in need. Let's put it that way. And I thought, oh, wow, break my own rules. That's all right. So I said, I'll tell you what. You go up to the group up there, the Vietnam veterans, 55, and I told him what number it was, and I said, see if they'll let you go with them. Oh, he knew them. Well, they came back, and obviously that didn't work, and I thought, oh dear, what am I going to do? And he was just hanging around there, and I kept feeling so bad. I was under so much pressure, though, because I was getting phone calls as well as trying to keep these people going. And then I had a group that came from Columbus, and that's what I put on here, that group that there was a fellow who brought his float, and he hadn't registered, and he had a 9 or 92-year-old, like whatever the group was, one was from Columbus. I thought, I can't leave them out. So I thought, well, maybe I can get the two groups together, the guy riding on there. Well, to make a long story short, he did get to go in the parade, and he sat right out there where everybody could see. He was right on the bench, so I was so thankful for that. And then when he got over to the park, we had determined that we weren't going to eat until a little bit later on, until around the ceremony time. He went up to the window of the where they were fixing the food, and he said, may I have a hot dog and something to eat? And they said, well, we're not ready right now. I think he kind of felt maybe they were just shoving him aside. So he just walked away and stood a little ways away. And then when they got it ready, the ladies yelled out at him, come on back, we got it all ready now. And they said you could tell that he was hungry. And he thanked them. And so, if we only helped one, and he got an opportunity to go over to the stand now, he got his hair cut, they were doing different things like that.
Did he do that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I remember.
He went over and got that. And if he can get some connection with some benefits, which is what they were doing, because we had, that clinic was from Columbus, so they were checking his health, they were giving him a haircut, they were telling him how to get help, they helped him they will help with employment and help with housing. 16 or 17% of the homeless in Licking County are veterans, and that is uncalled for. Now that might mean that they're not out on the streets, they're just going from house to house or something like that, but they are homeless. And that bothers me. So I think in the long run, guys, what we did on that May 17th really made, and I do believe it made the city look very good and shine bright. And I appreciate the support. You can read the little comments here. They're just samples of comments. But I appreciate the support that all of you gave, and we'll just have to wait and see how it all how all this falls out and what goes on in the future. One thing I think we've got to be careful of is we have to ask so much from our businesses to support things like this. I wish there was some way of that the city could help fund a little bit of this in any respect, because if they're going to give, we need to give, and it puts you under pressure. Look how close I ran that thing, and I was watching every penny. Literally, I was watching every penny of this. But thank you so much. You have any questions? I've talked your ears off. Now you're ready for me to leave.
I think we owe you a big round of applause.
Couldn't do it without a whole team of people, and my friendship club. They were working their tails off, were they not?
Yes.
Rain,
Yes, they did.
shine, made no difference, did it?
Nope.
So,
Jan, what was the this was obviously the first parade that we had here in Heath in quite some time. I think you were primarily the person that made contact with various businesses and groups as far as raising money that you did. What? Did you meet any resistance at all?
No, absolutely not. If I said that this is what we were doing, and I always preface it, I said, it's a first parade. Actually, I even put this in all my letters, and I was honest. I said it's the first Armed Forces Day parade in Licking County, held on that day. Actually, it's the first one because they had Memorial Day. And I said it's the first parade to Heath in 15 years. But the thing that really sold everything, even with the tank, that sold it with the tank, but the thing that sold it with the businesses was that it was for veterans. I really got no resistance. I was welcomed. Did I hear, John Hinder says to me, he said, Jan, he said, first of all, I thought you retired. I said, I just gave up my paycheck. But anyway, I said, he said, Jan, do you know how many of these I get a day? I said, I don't care. I need money, John. And he said, I told him what it was for, because I wanted it to be, if I was going to do the parade, I wanted it to be the best parade we could possibly produce. Otherwise, I didn't want to do it, honestly. And I knew that I wanted that tank because it was so different. Columbus had it. I called I actually called the National Guard and asked them if we could have a tank. And he said, yeah, if you want us to redo all your streets. He said, Jim, we can't take a tank on those streets. So I kind of thought, oh, that's a bummer. And then I happened to see that Columbus had it, and I thought, now wait a minute. If Columbus can have it, Heath can have it. So I started researching it, and that's how I came up with this.
That was in their Veterans Day parade, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually the tank, it's from the Husky refinery is the one who pays Ron to go anywhere, pays for the fuel for the tank. It's a big corporation situation going on. It cost how much? What was it? It was something like $15,000 or more than that for them to go down to Dayton 1 year, and they didn't get very much reimbursement for it. And he said, Jan, my company can't just do that. And I told him, Ron, I will work to try to get this taken care of. You will see on here that we paid for the distance from these people. They didn't make any money on their own. We took care, I did. He asked me if I would write letters. I had 15 letters to write for him to everybody in the corporation. And what happens with that is that the CEO, who is in Canada, will stop his business meeting when he gets a letter like that. And I was very thorough with my letter, but he will stop and he will read that to hit the people during the meeting. So I sent him a copy of the article that the advocate put out, which was a very good article, and pictures that were related to that. I sent him a copy of the flyer, the little sticker. I sent him, actually, from me, a thank you with the Heath, Ohio Hometown Memories, and I told him in there, thank you for helping us make more hometown memories, so that he got a feel of what was going on. But my feeling is that, you know, they work hard. The treads on those things are worth. They had just replaced them for $100,000. They normally have to raise the money to do that, but they got them donated this year. So, you know, we took care. You'll see some donations in there. The Allen County Museum that takes care of it. The military, the Firelands military, because of the cost of all their vehicles. And then the cost, the actual cost of bringing that tank down here, the actual cost is that $1,800. They have to get a wide load permit, and of course that's a Saturday. They have to pay time and a half, you know, and they got the fuel. So, what else? Is there anything else?
I think that was very good.
Anybody?
You know, John's exactly right in that that day doesn't happen without your help, and I think that if you happen to be there that day, or perhaps if you weren't, but maybe you've heard from some people who were there, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that that was the best parade that Licking County has seen in who knows how long. And it was definitely a situation where our city was putting its best foot forward. And we don't make that stride without you.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate it.
All right. You know, I was blessed. I probably, of anybody around this room or anybody that was in the parade, I was the most blessed because I had veterans coming up, hugging me and crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the best thank you could get.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that you do something good for somebody.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
Hey, John,
you,
that
Jan.
you've got enough time now to cover your stuff. You owe me a favor. I took all your time.
Whatever you did, good. Thank you, man.
You did us a favor.
What are you saying? That's all right, John. Payback is terrible.
I know, I deserve it.
Back to John.
Have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got 2 minutes for each of the remaining items. A legislative request. For several months, we've been discussing how to get a handle on the noise in regard to waste collection. And we eventually agreed, let's just establish some hours. So what I did is I went back to the Newark ordinance, which I think does a very good job of addressing this. And I actually cut out their ordinance. And it basically says, on the legislative request, which I'm proposing tonight, add a section to chapter 700, which deals with businesses, referencing noise control and stating, load, unload, open, close, or otherwise handle boxes, crates, containers, building materials, garbage cans, or similar objects between the hours of 9:30 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's prohibited. So that's basically what I'm saying right here. Now, this is for residential areas, not for business areas, and it doesn't specify the day of the week that you can or cannot do it. It's really for 7 days a week. During those hours, you cannot have garbage collection in residential areas or areas adjacent to residences.
Do you have any questions or comments about that?
From that's exactly the verbiage in Newark's.
I cut it out, yep.
Yeah, so it's not as though we're blazing a trail here. We're, you know, we'll be consistent with the city of Newark in this approach.
Which is why I didn't change it any, because that's easier on the garbage companies
Yeah.
as well.
Have you gotten any feedback from the companies? Are they aware this is?
No, I have not made any strides at making anyone aware of this at this time. I would recommend a public hearing and things like that where we invite them to it. This just gets moved.
Blue.
Red.
Jan would prefer the red.
Really?
As I understand, that was her color of choice.
You wore a few of those out.
Is that right, Tim?
On me, I know that.
Well, I brought the red one, so, okay. Well, I guess we will take that on.
Item number 3.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
How are you going to enforce it?
What will happen is I talked this over with the Newark Law Director's office, And they said they rarely have to do any enforcement. They've actually had one situation since during the duration of this ordinance, since it's been in effect. And all they did was call the company, and the company immediately ceased what they were doing. So probably what it would be is my contacting the company if there's a problem and just addressing it with them. Then if they fail to do it, then we take civil action in court against them. But generally, hopefully, we'll have the same experience Newark has. It'll be very rare, and if it does occur, we can take care of it very quickly without doing anything but harm.
I'm not sure that there aren't still infractions just because I'm in an office that people live in Newark, and I've heard them complaining like several months ago about it not being done in the right hours. But I don't think there are people who are going to complain. So they're just like, oh, I thought they couldn't come till 7. They were at my house at 5:30.
They're always going to be pushing it. I'm sure they will, especially on days when there's holidays and stuff, and they have to get it in. So I mean, I don't anticipate it to be perfectly followed, but at least it gives us some authority in cases where there are problems to act.
And what people do have.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Item number 3, Doug called me last week, and he had a very good situation. We get calls all the time about high grass and weeds. Now, it takes us a long time to get that stuff cut if the owner refuses to act on it, because we have to go through a notification process. If the house or property is occupied, we send out a certified letter, which is what we're supposed to do per ordinance, and it could take weeks to get that letter delivered, and then you have to give them so many days after that to get it cut. The other situation is, if the property isn't occupied, then we have to post it in Heath News. And that takes 2 to 3 weeks to get it posted, if they remember to put it in Heath News and stuff like this. Then you have a time frame where you have to wait after it's posted, then you get it cut. So rarely can we get grass cut in less than 3 weeks under the best of conditions. Doug asked me to explore what other options might be available, so I contacted the Newark Property Maintenance Office. The city of Newark has an ordinance which allows them to get the grass cut within 48 hours of notification. Now, the notification process is this. All they have to do is put a placard on the property where the grass is high. And that placard says if this is not cut within 48 hours, the city will do it. That's what they do.
Does Newark then charge the property owner, or bill the property owner, or put it on their tax certificate?
Then the money goes
The
against the
same
tax.
process
Same
that
as
we
us.
use.
Oh, is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So it's up to you if you'd like to explore this, if you'd like to discuss it, if you'd like me to maybe next month present an ordinance to you.
I just think that it's something that needs to be done because of the simple fact that by the time you see that the grass is already a foot high, then we wait another 3 weeks, it's up to here, and the people that are going in there cutting it for us, they're having a heck of a time. There's no doubt about it. So once it reaches the 8 inches and gets to a foot high, then it's looking bad, and we say, hey, I think we should explore putting that thing on the door. And
Do you know, John? Do they handle a property that's zoned residential different than if they handle a property that's zoned commercial, or do they?
It's all done the same. It's a very standardized ordinance. It just, the issue is the issue.
Do you know if the relatively short amount of time that they give them, I mean, has anybody challenged this, that only having 48 hours to, has anybody challenged that with Newark, do you know, in court or anything?
I did not ask that question. However, the fact that they're still doing it today would suggest that if it was challenged, it was overturned or not overturned.
Okay. I think too, we could explore maybe the fact that instead of 48, let's make it 72 hours.
Right.
Make it at 72
Would it be
hours.
the same profit, 72 as 48?
Well, there is.
No, that's true. That's probably too.
There is one drawback, though, that may make 72 a little more sensible. That is that Newark has to do a lot more grass cutting than they did before this ordinance went into effect, because you're not giving people the time to react that you normally do. So I think we could probably expect to incur more costs. So we would have to budget more for it, which is what they told me. However, on the other hand, it is, people pay more attention to it because they know you're not messing around. They know they have less time to do it. And once you've cut it once or twice, they generally don't try to get in that situation again.
Which is exactly what we want.
Right, train them, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're interested, would you prefer 72 over 48?
Myself, I think 72 would be, you know, I know you're, like Dick's saying, maybe we're gonna still get as many problems, but maybe the 72 hours, we hit them once with it, and if they let it go and we hit them a second time, it just, I
Well,
think
and
it's
it
something
rains.
we really should look into. That's,
Oh, yeah, it does
You know,
rain.
sometimes rains.
that's right, that's right.
Doesn't mean we have to fine them, or we don't have to do something if there's rain. But
Well-
if they wait for 72 hours and then from 48 to 72 it rains, then they've got an excuse to go another 24 hours.
Well, and the other thing is this, what we do is we say if they don't cut it within a certain amount of time, we arrange to have the grass cut. It may take 2, 3, 4 days to get the grass cut after the expiration time.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'd have to schedule it. And,
Right.
you know, it seems to me, in regards to rain, we wouldn't post a notice until the height of the grass is already in violation of
Right.
the code.
Right.
There would have been at least a couple of sunny days during that period of time that the grass could have been mowed prior to it already being in
Being
violation.
posted,
So,
right, yeah.
I, you know, from an ability to mow it standpoint, rain might be an issue. From a, well, that gives them more time. No, I don't think we need to. If it got to that point, they had plenty of opportunity to mow the grass.
We can all get our grass cut around the range, and any other property owner can also do that. It's just they refuse to do it,
Yeah.
and I don't have a lot of sympathy.
And sometimes it's a bank that has it, and they just don't care.
No, we just,
A loan organization or whatever, and they just overlooking it.
I say stay with the 48.
whatever you guys want to do.
Is it predominantly vacant properties, John?
No, it's about an even split. And, and I shouldn't say that, Deb, I think you're right, it is probably maybe 60 to 65% vacant property.
Is it predominantly residential?
Go with.
No, it goes across the board. It's mostly, it can be
Well,
commercial.
I'm just trying to think it all.
I would say probably about 65% residential, then commercial, some manufacturing, some agricultural.
Are you considering vacant properties as well as vacant lots?
Well, vacant lots are another thing. Vacant lots we don't usually touch. If it's a lot in the subdivision that hasn't been built upon, we do respond to those if there's a complaint, but we only get a cut maybe once or twice a season. But yeah, we do respond to those as well. Now, if it's a vacant field out in the middle of nowhere, then we won't touch it. And our ordinance is actually written only, if you read it, for residential, but we apply it in commercial and other areas too. We've never been challenged on it.
I just noticed in subdivisions, there's a lot of vacant lots where if I was the owner of the lot or the realtor,
You'd want
I
it.
just let it go and have it
that's
rain
true.
and cutting. It's one less thing I have to do.
Well,
So
that's-
it's on the tax bill.
Guy by the name of Hal Lieberman,
Pay you or pay it.
guy by the name of Hal Lieberman owns lots on Berkshire. That's what happened last year. We contacted him, he didn't cut them, so we got vacant lots. So we do it, but we don't do them as frequently as we do others that are actually grass.
So we gotta repeal an ordinance and then motion for another.
Probably amend an
You'll have
ordinance.
Probably.
I would say an amended ordinance, right.
Amended, yeah, a lot of them.
So, well, I'll go ahead and get with Dave Morrison on that.
It is wrong.
You go with the 48 hours, you might just stick with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Any other questions? Next item, something entirely different. As you enter the police department driveway on 79, the asphalt is all torn up. And what happens is it's so torn up that it's always in a state of, I'll call it graveliness, that the asphalt turns to gravel and it lays there. That's bad for the police cars because when they're trying to exit with an emergency, their tires spin and throw it all over the place and they don't have the traction they need. The asphalt's just falling apart, and that's not an area we should have asphalt to begin with. What I would like to do is cut out about a 20-foot section of the asphalt and replace it with concrete, which is what it should be. We're looking at approximately, to do that, plus we got to do some drainage work and a few other things, about $15,000. Now, what I'd like to do is get with, I've asked the parks or the street department, but they don't have the people to do it. And they would still have to buy all the materials and stuff like that. So we're looking at a private contractor doing it, to be honest with you.
How many days do you think that project would take?
Well, the project itself probably could be done maybe in 3 days, but the concrete's gonna have to cure for a couple of weeks.
Okay, so the police department just use.
Right.
Okay.
Now, what I have in my budget is $12,000 right now, which I was going to use to put asphalt sealer over our parking lots. I'd rather use that money for this, and if I delete that account, what I'd like to do is be able to come back to council and get the difference to put back into zero it out. If you don't mind, I would like to do that. We really need it. And
You getting bids?
well, I will ask for bids for that. Yeah. I'll just go to some local concrete companies. I had Jobs Henderson drop a little spec sheet for us. And I'll just send it to the local companies and ask for them to price it out and let us know.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think in the street department right now. I'm not sure if we have anybody who has done a lot of handling of concrete. And you gotta kinda know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
But I think in the street department, we could take a day or so to prep the area for concrete. Let's talk about that. Let's maybe look to lean on the street department to get a day from them to maybe to do some of the digging out, some of the excavating, some of the, just whatever we can utilize city personnel for. I think we need to try to lean on them and get that.
Okay.
But I'm not familiar if there's anybody in the street department that has a lot of experience dealing with concrete.
And we have to get the right elevations on this, and we might have to do some work with a culvert and a few other things. It's pretty messy out there, as I said, drainage and everything. But certainly, we can do that, definitely. So I will go ahead and start working in that area. Yeah. Any other questions on that? If not, I'd like to go to item number 5, drainage issues. Surprisingly, with all this rain, we've had a few complaints on drainage. A lot of the complaints we can resolve working with a property owner or an adjacent property owner. There have a few complaints where we have to commit city resources. One of the complaints is there's a drainage creek in Greenbrier Estates that feeds through the south end of the subdivision and goes behind Noah's Ark and then goes under Nadine Drive entrance. And that is full of obstructions and garbage. People have thrown their tree limbs and grass in it and all sorts of things. And what's happened is Noah's Ark is actually flooded. When we had the last heavy rain, it flooded, overflowed the bank, and went into the lower area of their center. And we do have a responsibility for maintaining public drainage systems. The street department and I went out and looked at it, and this is something, again, it's very much like Willow Ridge last year, where we had to have Leighton, I think, go in, or someone to clean out some drainage ditches.
Yeah.
They don't have the equipment to get in there close to the creek because they'll sink in and stuff like that.
Not the extra stuff that the property owner paid for, just clearing the
clearing,
way itself.
right.
Just the area itself.
Right.
What do we use, a track hoe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
we
was
use
track.
the track.
Yeah.
So this is private property, but we have a drainage easement that we have to comply.
Yes, we
Is that
do,
what we're
because the
talking about?
drainage creek receives all the drainage
So we
from
have
the
an easement we
Greenbrier
have to
Station.
maintain.
We do have easements that go down to it and follow it, yeah.
It is private property.
Yeah, it is. It's all on private property, yes.
The Noah's Ark, isn't that the place that had the problem before?
They had a problem with the
Sewer.
They had a sanitary sewer
It is.
backup.
Okay.
But I mean, there's no
I
question.
know it's different, but
Yeah.
just wanna make sure I'm still in the same area.
Yes.
It is, there's no question that it has a negative effect on them. And if we don't clean it out, we're the ones responsible for cleaning out drainage ditches. Then we could be liable for any damage that occurs there again. Now, the owners have talked to me, they're very nice, they understand we only can do what we can do, and that we have certain resources and there's timeframes. And, but I wouldn't be sitting here saying that I think we should do it if I thought it was their problem and their responsibility, because I usually try to direct those back to the property owner. This is out of their control, they can't do a thing about it, and it's right in our backyard, that's our responsibility.
Accumulation of years of building.
Yes, exactly. And we're not doing the whole thing, we're only doing probably about 100 yards of the creek. We're not doing the whole thing, just the lower area. And there too, what I'd like to do is get estimates on that. The street department has a budget. What I'd like to do is use their budget and then reimburse them for the exact amount that it cost us, for the contractor to do it. Which is how we've done a couple of things in the past. So that's what I'd like. So that means maybe with a street committee meeting, we'll have an estimate of how much it'll cost.
Okay.
Then I can do that then.
And that'll be on the 16th.
Okay, on the 16th. Thank you, Doug. The other problem we have that we have to take action on is in the Willow Ridge subdivision. You all know the people that live up there are just troublemakers, headaches, all over the place. There is one lot at the highest point of the subdivision where the homeowners began to develop a lot that was very difficult to develop, and it should only be done by very experienced people. And the homeowners got in over their heads. They created very serious drainage problems and erosion problems that have impacted the lower neighborhood. There are 4 properties that get an extreme amount of water every time it rains. One of the properties had water go to the basement, and we have sent these people violations. Initially, they attempted to correct these, but then again, after they corrected them, they allowed the situation to get out of hand, primarily because they have a lot of contractors working on the property that don't give a crap. They just go in there, screw everything up, leave when their job is done. The homeowner's left with a mess, and they can't handle it, so we are left with a mess. The homeowners are very well aware through violations and emails and phone calls that I've made to them repeatedly that if it's not done, the city will go in. Last week, I gave them a 10-day notice. That 10-day will expire, I think, next Monday or Tuesday. That if it is not corrected completely, we will hire a contractor to go in there and do that. We're talking about putting in erosion control fences, digging up the front drainage ditch, stoning it, cleaning it up, putting more bales of straw on it, just to control the stormwater runoff. And this is only a temporary fix, because this will eventually get weakened by huge rains and stuff like that. And the worst thing of all is the homeowners have personal problems, which may delay or even prevent them from finalizing all of the work they have to do regarding draining and water control and grading on their property. So we don't know how long it's going to be like this. So what I'm also going to do with the street department budget, when I bring you that request next week, is also include that as well. And what we will do for those property owners is we will send them a bill. If they don't pay for it, we will put it against the property taxes. So, any other questions on that? One last item, and Tim asked me to bring this up, and it's a good point. A quick update on the median. 10 years ago, this project started. 10 years ago, I had a lot more hair. It was dark, and I wasn't on blood pressure pills. Now, the bad news is we're not going to be Tree City, unfortunately. The reason is this. As you know, Tree City. As you all know, the trees, probably 3/4 of them died last year. We had them replaced this winter by the original landscaper that put them in. And those trees, or at least most of them, which are on the big island, seem to be doing okay right now. But the trees that were alive last fall have now died. So I've gotten with Bob Geller on this, and I'd like to commend Bob Geller. He's really taken charge of this, and I think he's done a great job. We got a landscaping company to come in who authorized us to do that, and they pulled the dead trees, and they also pulled a lot of the dead plants and shrubs, replanted them so it looks nice and orderly, put down mulch, and the 2 smallest, most northern islands now don't have any trees, but they do have the mulch, and they have some greenery in them, and they will be planting flowers and stuff like that later on.
Some annuals.
We, both Bob and I, don't think it's a good idea to try and plant trees anymore, because we're pretty certain we're going to have the same impact. Why the trees are dying It's everyone's guess. It could be bad soil, it could be the heat from the asphalt. We've got all sorts of things that might be the causes. But why take a chance of doing it again and investing, good money after bad? We don't recommend it. Bob feels, and I agree with him completely, that by not putting the trees in, by putting the annuals in and some other flowering plants, it will look very attractive, be much easier to maintain, and the quality will be more dependable than it is right now. So that's where we're going on this.
It'll improve the sight distance too.
And it will improve the sight distance. And I know there've been a lot of questions on, will the trees have negative impact on drivers and stuff? I don't know. But the key is this, that the trees just do not survive. And I think we'd be wasting our money trying to experiment with that issue. Yes, sir.
Can we get our money back for the trees?
No, it's past the 1-year warranty on it.
Yeah, but the trees they replaced still died, so we either ought to get a tree
No,
replacement.
the trees that they did not replace died.
Yeah, the trees they replaced are living there.
No, the trees out at the far south end, or the north end, I'm sorry, north end, there was trees there, they died. Did they replace those trees? Did they replace those trees? My question, did they
Let me
replace
put it
them?
this way. I can't sit here and tell you, and I don't think anyone in the state can, what trees will replace. I don't know. I know dominantly they were in the Big Island. They may have replaced a couple in the smaller islands as well.
The small islands all died, and they replaced them. If they did replace them, they're
small-
dead, so we never got our bang
last
for our
year.
buck.
Last year, the small island trees were dead.
Right.
What I will do is this.
I'm
I
just
don't
saying-
know. I don't know the answer to your question, but I will ask.
All right. I just think that we spent a lot of money on trees that we don't get. So if we don't get it, we at least get the $1,500 for each tree that we don't have.
I will ask.
And then we could use that to help pay for stuff. We spend a
will
lot of money on trees and plants and stuff that we don't need out there.
Is it $1,500 for each tree?
No.
Okay.
But I will ask. Okay, I'll have you an answer on that.
Any other questions?
One other thing, that I'm gonna, the banner posts, they have been repaired and the defective parts replaced. We're gonna start putting banners on them this summer, though they won't be completely utilized. We have a full fall schedule and hopefully winter schedule as well.
It looks like the what do you call them?
Crossbars?
Yeah, the rod things or whatever. It looks like they're more narrow now
Yeah.
than what they were.
That's what I thought.
It's, I don't know.
Take a look at it when you drive by it.
I saw 'em.
Just looking at it, eyeballing it. It looks like they're more narrow.
I haven't really paid a lot of
Remember how we had to deal with that issue of when we purchased those original banners, how
I saw the dead
width
trees.
of them was
And then the
not.
trees.
It wouldn't fit through the. It seems like these ones are more narrow now.
I said them post
Let me check and see.
$100,000.
I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. We'll know here in a few days when they put some good. Yes, sir.
We'll see if them banners work.
One final thing, I asked you before the meeting about the Thornwood Drive
Yes.
paving. Would you share that with the rest of us? Just so everybody's updated.
One of the projects we have this year, or the only paving project we have this year, is Thornwood Drive. Initially, Thornwood Drive was supposed to be paved in April. However, it's not paved yet, and ODOT has not been able to give us a timeline for paving it this year, although it'll be sometime this summer or early fall. The reason for that is there's only one asphalt company that's available to both Cocosine and Shelley, which do the majority of the paving for ODOT. Both of them are operating at peak capacity, and because they can't generate enough asphalt for the local Cocosine and Shelley jobs, they are now behind schedule. So we haven't even had a pre-construction meeting for this project yet. And they usually have those about a month before they begin, so that's how far behind they are. So that's the status on that right now. I don't have a date, and I'm hoping it'll be by the end of the summer.
Before Thanksgiving, that should be.
Maybe, yeah, it should be.
All right, anything else for community development and zoning? Seeing none, we will adjourn at 6:44.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, thank Jan.
Am I ready for finance? Is that a minute here? You got that
Yes, I do.
back here?
Thank you.
Everybody got one, the next one?
You guys got one?
Thank you. Do you have one?
One?
What I printed one's toy.
I think there's an extra in here. That's all right.
Oh, we're okay.
All right, 6:45, we'll call Finance Committee meeting to start here. Legislative requests. First item, authorize disposal of one 2010 Dodge Police Car and one 2006 Mercury Marquis, waiving the bidding procedure. One police car, what's the Mercury Marquis?
That's the former chief's car.
Oh.
The blue Mercury Marquis. Yeah.
Okay. This is eBay or what do you?
I intend to eBay both of these vehicles.
Okay. Deb? Any other comments? Okay, second item. Establish regulations regarding refuse collection hours, as we went over a few minutes ago. Any further comments, questions, concerns about what was already covered a few minutes ago? Basically mirroring the city of Newark's ordinance. Okay,
So we are gonna schedule a public hearing on that one.
What I would
we'll
recommend,
read it and then we'll do a public hearing.
Yeah.
Tim will announce a public hearing, we gotta get it.
Read it once.
Okay, third item, appropriate $3,422.24 in insurance reimbursement to park services for railing repair on Irving Ridge. Which side was this on? This was part of the bike path thing, or what? was
Yeah,
it?
by the, on the bike path, see the
Yeah,
bike path
little
side.
rails that curl.
Somebody slid into
Had a
that.
wreck or something, didn't they?
Yeah, on ice and the wrecky, so their insurance cost money for the cost based on an estimate.
That was someone else's money.
Yeah, this came to the city, we're gonna pay for the repairs with their money.
This one we talked about a while back.
Yeah. Yes.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Police department did a good
No,
job.
Dick wants to question.
Police department did a good job of noting in the report the damage done to the rail, so that helped make it easy.
That did.
All right, fourth item, appropriate $4,335.09. I need funds for park services to cover armed forces parade expenses. Comments, questions? From the very detailed report by Jenny Webb. Anything else?
That again is kind of like an in and out type of thing.
Exactly.
No net cost of the city. Fifth item, authorize the disposal of one 1989 Ford F-150 for the wastewater department. That is, we're replacing that with something else, correct?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, any other comments? Come out of your committee, any other comments? Deb, you okay?
Okay.
All right, other items, go ahead, Keith.
This item, we kind of ran out of time last council meeting. Creative Microsystems Inc. is well known to us here at City Hall. Our finance, fixed assets, utility, accounts payable, budget, all these systems are software driven, and CMI has been the software vendor for the city of Heath for since, I think, the early nineties. And, we kind of have, when they did their last upgrade, we were years behind their upgrade, but eventually felt compelled about 5 years ago to engage in an upgrade. Since we were on the tail end of that, they've now come up with something new. All I'm doing is reporting to you that we're looking into what our options are, including other vendors. We can keep what we have going for some time, but these new systems modernize what you can do. And I'm not presenting a recommendation to this body at this time, but it's a little disconcerting that 5 years ago we spent that much money and now the proposal to us is that much more. But these are very intricate systems, and when something doesn't go right, you need to call somebody, and we've done business with CMI a long time. I've engaged in some conversation with Don Schoenhart, who is a financial advisor to the city. His company does our comprehensive annual financial reports, and it is because of Don that we are doing business with CMI now. And I've talked to Don about the possibility of what's he think of CMI now compared to 20 years ago. So anyway, I have no recommendations. I'm just simply informing you that we're looking at this. Maybe something for your next audit.
Keith, I have a question. Does CMI, I mean, are there any other municipalities that are using this type of thing? Has this kind of problem been identified there? I mean, because I know a lot of times when you're working with a company, if they have already solved the problem in one area and the work has been done, you may be able to get that. So, anyway, I don't know if it works that way.
Yeah, we don't have any dire problems to resolve. Probably in utility, we've gone in fairly short order to web payments. We've got a interactive voice response robocall. You call the robot and you can pay your utility bill over the phone. We've got direct pay, which is an automatic bank draft. We have it so that you can pay your bill at the bank. All of these options add some confusion on our end, in particular in reconciling the bank account. With all these, it just gives you multiple opportunities for errors. And there are even, I understand, bank reconciliations. There's bank reconciliation software that CMI, quite frankly, is working on, and I know Newark just bought some that was very expensive, and I've talked to some of the staff there, and they're suggesting it's not all it's cracked up to be. The problem is that the financial aspects of what we do are just simply more complex than they once were. So trying to find a way to reconcile those things is a bit of a challenge. So anyway, we're looking at it, I guess what I'd say.
Hilliard Mayor.
What's that?
Hilliard Mayor.
He is.
Does Hilliard have this kind of system?
Yeah. Hilliard is using CMI for some of their applications.
Interesting how they're doing it.
You bet. That's why I called to talk to Don.
Yeah. He wasn't Hilliard Mayor when we first
No.
engaged with him.
He had no idea he'd be in politics back when we first engaged him. That's a long time ago.
Okay.
I just had a question. Have you seen the Ohio's putting forth, they're trying to pass putting forth standards, new accounting standards, transparency standards that's going to affect the compatibility of the whole state, small governments, so that things are searchable.
That seems to be an enterprise of the Auditor of State, Dave Yost's office. We probably are beyond, we were probably already compliant to that stuff. We may need to do some adjusting in how we report, but that is in large part of what Don Schoenhardt's company does for us already.
I wondered if that was going to throw a monkey wrench into the whole process, because I saw Mandel was involved in trying to get new standards statewide, so that all the reporting was the same and compare cities.
Yeah, one thing I'll point out is that cities aren't required to do a comprehensive annual financial report. My predecessor started doing them because it was the thing to do. And I applaud her for doing it. And it doesn't come without cost. You know, part of the budget is, for my department, is there's some significant expense that is applied to keeping these ducks in a row and so forth and doing this annual report. Any new things that come about through legislation at the state level that would affect us is going to end up being worked out probably more by Don Schoenhardt and Associates than me. They're the ones that keep us very compliant. Anything else?
Items tabled.
I'll point out that I had mentioned to you earlier that a meeting in January would be the drop dead last point in time that this body would be able to consider elected personnel wages. I double checked with Law Director Morrison, and he indicates that Friday, December 5th would be the last day that you could consider that without declaring an emergency. And I'm not sure that we could really declare an emergency because it would not give the electorate the right of referendum.
December 5th is a Friday this year too.
Second item table, that's topic that Tim and Deb and I, is there anything else referencing
Just
that?
put off meeting
Yeah.
at this point. I can get with them.
Okay. No reason to just the final item, obviously gave you an opportunity to talk with you, talk with Tim for the meeting, so we took that off the table, but at least got it in the motion in the legislation response, so that's on the table. See, it's in writing today. Yeah. Dave, do you have any comments on that?
No.
Okay.
I would like to say just a couple things, because I talked to you at length, and I've talked to several people, and I think that we are extremely premature in trying to move this forward at this time. I think that the more information I get, the more questions it raises in my mind. I think that we haven't done enough research to assure we're protecting the city and the citizens of Heath from legal ramifications. I also think that in my mind, the Heath Community Arts Council has been a long-standing partner in this, and I think that prior to just saying it's all or nothing, I think that we should be sitting down, and I'm not talking about an hour meeting. I'm talking about giving them an opportunity. If we see there are changes we want, be that reduction in funding, be that changes in programming, all of those things, maybe. I think the Arts Council deserves for us to be able to sit down with them and say, these are the things we would like to see, get their input on that, and determine what role they want to play moving forward, because I don't think we just unilaterally should pull funding without having them at the table talking about what we aren't happy with and what we want to see differently. Because I think that, there could be changes, there could be ways to make it more inclusive for citizens. And maybe, it may not be what it is today, maybe there'll be changes, but I think that they're a big part of this, and I think that, we should be meeting with them to determine that before we move forward and just say we want to pull the funding, because then we can't go back from that, it's done.
Any other comments?
I got a question, so you're talking about it, and I was gonna bring it up under, the caucus part, but, we do have this ordinance number 41 in ordinance form. Now, is it coming out of finance, or is it coming from you, Jeff, as a ordinance to be put on for tonight? And I'll ask the law director, just, can we add it to the agenda tonight?
Yes,
So,
you
okay. So my question is has it been untabled in finance and then voted out of finance? I mean, or like that's coming out of finance, is this? Okay. So when we get to the caucus part, under introduction ordinances, we'll add it underneath
My
there.
understanding, 2 readings, table, there's plenty of ways in consideration of what you just said.
Yeah, there would be no
There-
waiving
there
of it
could be-
tonight, because there's 2
there
people
could-
missing, and
there
I'm not
could
gonna
be
vote to waive
ample
session.
time.
First reading.
But I don't think 2 weeks is enough time. I was just handing another packet of information in my box today, and I was here over the weekend and picked up everything, so I know that just came today, so I haven't even had time to read that. So I think it's something we need to, like, as I've said in the past, we need due diligence, and we aren't in any rush. It's not going to take effect until next January, so why do we need to do it in 2 weeks? I think there's a lot of considerations that need to happen before we do that.
Anything else for finance?
I just got a comment. I love the history of the Shea House, and I certainly respect all the people present in the past who devoted a lot of time, the volunteers, Jan, council, and everything else. It was a valiant effort to develop something that would be a centerpiece for our community. I can't believe the Art Council isn't aware of its failures, its PR failures, volunteers, etc., etc. The community that I talk to, and I don't talk to everyone, I don't even pretend to say that, but are very negative about the Shea House. There's a small group of people that partake in the activities. A lot of people don't know where it is, but they've heard about it. Most of it has been negative. And I think the mayor starting the ball rolling on taking a hard look at this is correct. The results of the former mayor, and some of you, if not all of you, know this. At one point, it was going to be a center of a retail development, movie theaters. Remember that, John? Everything else never happened. That never happened. We all know that.
The recession,
I'm not
shortly after that was,
I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but that never happened. So there's been a lot of platitudes and discussion of what it could be, should be, and it isn't. So now is the time that the council, and respectfully, I think I would like to ask Mr. Kelly to lead the council on a course that will address the funding of 58-202, 2002 or 202, whatever it is. That the funding is needed for other things than heat. Period. We even have Ohio State that agrees with it.
Well, it made a comment.
So we need really to address it. There are many more needs that this funding could be used for in Heath, of responsibilities that the city has, curbs, gutters, streets, you name it.
that would affect it, or even activities that more residents could see, participate in, take their families, whether it be Geller Park or something else. I'll let you, I don't have the answers. I'm just telling you what I hear and what I've seen for the last 15 years, which is really nothing. It hasn't really changed that much. And I was proponent of the shea house. Jan will tell you that when they had the Coke drive for that extra money, Pepsi, I'm sorry, Pepsi. But when Pepsi had that money that they wanted to give out, I was
Pepsi.
So I'm not one of those negative people about the shea house who have been against it since it started. But now is the time, I think, for council president and to move the council in that direction. The speed, I'll let you decide the speed. But it is time to face a reality that it isn't what it ever was going to be. Is it a good thing? Is it a good building? I've sat in Park Shea's office and discussed volunteer efforts with him, and they went nowhere. Yeah, I'll say the details on that. Funding should be stopped and money should be sport areas to benefit more of the Heath residents. If we put it on a ballot or a levy, it would have failed yesterday. It's dead on arrival as far as the citizens of Heath. If you thought that traffic cameras were an issue that polarized and failed, put the shea house on a ballot and you'll see what you get, and our council won't be able to vote on it. That's my 2 cents worth. Sorry about that. I thought I had a gun going.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I totally support, and after just what I've observed in the relationships from the house now is worse than it's ever been. It never succeeded, and when the past director says it never will, it can't. You gotta put some weight behind that. And we can do a lot better with the money from the bed tax. And for the house, I think it'll be an asset to rent out, because I know we would have rented it several times, and we had to do their vendor or their catering. And I'm not gonna pay an exorbitant amount for cookies and coffee. But I would rent the place, and I think it would. I've talked to caterers. I've talked to 3 caterers that would love to be in there and pay you to use it. And what is it supposed to be about but the community? There's only a few people getting use of it, and they're wasting money. I'm sorry, but if you look at some of those fundraisers, it's ridiculous the way they throw money around. But when it's not yours, it helps. You know, I'm total support behind the mayor, and I've got quite a few people with me that are totally for his idea of repealing this tax. They didn't listen to me. They have been very patient, because I'd have it on the ballot already. And I'd define what we were going to spend the tax on and what the house was. And we'd have a public vote. The public would vote on it.
I think we got some information given to us that we need to digest, and there hasn't been a decision made one way or the other. I'm sure we're going to hear from people tonight, both sides. We're going to hear in the future, so we can.
Well, your mailboxes are getting full, and you'll get a lot of information, as if the Art Council didn't know what the situation was. When he started the ball rolling, now you're going to get a lot of information and this and that. Yep. If he hadn't made that proposal, your mailbox would be empty. That's my opinion.
You know that.
But I think that we didn't really give them what we thought wasn't working until we just said we're going to pull funding. I think we need to protect the city from any legal ramifications. That's my concern.
Yes,
It's not about even whether we pull the money or we don't pull the money. It's about protecting the city. It's about, at least involving the Arts Council and being fair and saying, even if we move forward, but we don't have any bed tax, do you want to be the ones that are part of this? Because I don't think it's ever going to operate like Hoback Park and you just turn the keys over and say, hope for the best, because there's too many intricate little things that could be broken and thrown away. That smart board in the basement could be destroyed. We don't have the manpower to go and think about it.
Do you honestly believe that?
Yeah. I
You
do.
honestly believe
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
You believe that somebody's gonna sign?
Not intentionally. Are you gonna inventory after every meeting that they have there? Are you gonna go in and, I
Yeah,
mean,
the
there's too many.
volunteer, you know, a lot of volunteers would be happy to do that.
But you need someone to coordinate that. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. The Arts
And
Council is in
it's-
place. Let's tell them what we think isn't working. Let's give them a chance to see, do you wanna be a part of it moving forward? That's all I'm saying. It
Deb,
doesn't
if I
have to
can,
happen in 2
if I
weeks.
can maybe just point out that, as I've said before, and I'll say again, the idea of the Shea House project being even minusculely accepted by the community is not a new goal. It's a goal that I talked about when I campaigned for mayor. It was a goal that I talked about with Jan shortly after becoming mayor. It's a goal that I talked about extensively when I was on the Arts Council board. I don't think the perception that this is somehow, the fact that there's concern regarding the successful impact of the Shea House in the community, I don't think that's a novel concept to anybody that's on the Arts Council board or volunteers there or helps to run the place. And I have said to Park Shea that I do not believe that the entity known as the Heath Community Arts Council needs to fold should this council choose to repeal the bed tax ordinance. I do think that they would need to look at this through an entirely new prism, just as the city needs to. We've been, like I said, as far as the bed tax is concerned, it's been 12 years to the tune of $1.25 million in total in just bed tax revenue. The Arts Council, though, is its own entity. I don't speak to for them, but I would hope that, yeah, they're willing to look at this, help redefine for everybody in Heath what that facility's purpose is. Its access, availability, and use by individuals and groups, not just in the city of Heath, but beyond. I disagree with the concept that somehow if we let the riffraff in, all of a sudden the wallpaper will be torn off the walls. I think that I've been to the Buckingham House for a few different things, and
It wasn't unmanned
seems
though. There was somebody there.
They had a volunteer that I don't think required a 6-figure donation. They had a volunteer that kind of made sure that that the place wasn't getting torn apart. I'm sure that if something unruly happens there, that whoever it is that is there probably has instructions to call the police department or whatever. I don't know. To me anyway, I know that this is not a new concept or thought for the Arts Council, and I say that simply because I was there. And any questions that you have that I could be of assistance with, I'd love to help you with.
There's some other information that I want to gather, just because I think that I'm concerned about protecting the city. And I also think that, we could be telling them what we wanted. It's not about the money so much as inclusiveness. I agree with you. I don't wanna have an event there and have to use a caterer. I don't wanna have a baby shower or a bridal shower. But I think we could be telling them, these are the things we wanna see. This is.
That's a great example. Let me just use that one example, okay? That's a fantastic example. When I was on the Arts Council Board, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we talked about having an approved caterers list, right? Options, okay? I'll share with you that there was a very prominent citizen of Licking County who was looking to book a facility for an event. And when they contacted the Shea House, they were told, this is the caterer you will use. Period. Now, again, the idea of an approved caterer list, not a new concept. We talked about it many times when we were, even when I was on the board, back then. This was just a couple of months ago that this event took place, and it didn't happen at the Shea House, in part because the person that was having the event, they wanted to use a very reputable caterer in Licking County of their choosing. One example, Deb, of
why don't we have an open meeting and have everybody there? We have these different discussions in this room, we have this discussion here. Let's get the heck out and talk about it so we can make a wise decision instead of just little groups here. I mean, I've heard his comments several times, but he doesn't need to talk to me. It's what everybody else needs to talk about. We need to have a public meeting.
I think that's a good idea, Derek.
You got one.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's one.
Are we done with finance yet?
Anything else? I'm gonna adjourn finance at 7:17, okay? So you can move on to caucus.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Morrow, will you do the invocation?
Yes.
Under absent, Mr. Henry and Mr. Johnson, we need someone to excuse them. Okay, election appointments, Mary.